I am being watched. Welcome everyone to Mailfuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Person of Interest, Season 3, Episode 14. It's called Provenance. So spoilers for the episode as always. So yes, we're back, and Reese is back, more importantly, and we have what I would call a very cozy, light episode of Person of Interest, like a classic episode where there's a number, there's a person, who maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's the bad guy, and it kind of turns about halfway through from what we thought it was before, which you can usually see coming most of the time, and I could see it coming here. They built up the person of interest here, whose name was Kelly Lynn, who was an Olympic gymnast who dropped out after getting a silver medal in the year 2000 and now seems to be a super like amazing cat burglar who robs artifacts. At first, it seems for herself, but obviously, as the episode goes on, we find out she's working for some nefarious people. And then when we find out she's actually a pretty good person, it's more because they've kidnapped her daughter and she's doing it under duress. It's not something she's doing. And any bodies that have been left in her wake, which the Interpol agent that's chasing her thinks she's done, are actually the evil kidnappers that have got her daughter that are doing that. So, I mean, that's what the episode is largely about. And it's actually a little bit more Shaw focused than it is Reese focused, which is interesting, given obviously he got a big focus last episode on the plane. But I thought he might get a lot of focus here just because it's his first mission back in the city. But no, we focused on Shaw. Fusco gets some good stuff as well, as does Finch. No Root this time, but I really meant it when I said this is a cozy episode because it's very old school for Person of Interest. It doesn't feel as high stakes as anything we've had in the last like 7 episodes, 8 episodes, something like that. It's been kind of an insane stretch over the past while, so it's kind of a welcome breath to take before we get back into some serious stuff. It's just kind of a happy time, more for the most part. Like, you've got like a fun montage in the middle where they're kind of getting set up for their plan, because ultimately it turns into a heist story where once they've actually captured Kelly and they figure out why she's doing what she's doing, it's like, oh, to help save her daughter, we have to help her steal this, super expensive antique Bible that's been held in this super fancy security firm's building. And it's going to be a proper heist. There's finger scanners, there's armed guards, there's all this stuff going on. So we get the planning, the prep, and all the rest of it. Which, funnily enough, the part that made me chuckle the most out of all this was a new piece of technology for the time. Obviously now it's about 10 years old, because this episode would have been around 2013-ish. Yeah, that sounds right. Around then. And that was the 3D printer that Finch gets. And it's introduced with him looking at the instructions. And I really like that shot of him looking at the instructions and like looking a little bit both excited by the new tech, but also kind of befuddled because he doesn't actually know how to work it. One, because Finch just tends to know how technology works, so it's actually kind of funny seeing him with something new that he's not really used before. So that shot of him looking at the instructions told us that element of it. It let the audience know this is new. In case you weren't aware that 3D printers were a new thing when this episode aired. And I know it was a new thing at the time because I remember being in university and one of the lecturers that I knew being really excited that the university got one in. That's how kind of like fresh they were around 2012, 2013 time. So this was a thing that existed. Now, admittedly, can it print accurate fingerprints that would trick a scanner? I mean, I think that's open for debate. I don't know. Seems maybe a little far-fetched, but I maybe they can. I don't know. And it also led to the funniest line of the episode, which is not so much the line itself, but more the reaction to the line, where Finch like says to Shaw as she's putting the fingers on her fingers to do the scan, he says, "Remember to lick them before you put them on the scanner." And the way she just goes, "Excuse me," just caught me off guard. It was just a funny line. So no, I enjoyed that. It's a fun time. Honestly, the only time it felt like it got beyond just a little bit, pleasant was probably the final scene where the team's all just having a drink, celebrating, and Fusco's joking about what else could they do a heist on because they were good at it. Maybe they could go after Fort Knox. Maybe they could go after the Crown Jewels. And there's just a little moment where they're saying, hey, we make a good team. And Reese pours a drink and says there's one member missing. And they all kind of toast to Carter without ever saying her name or anything like that. And the final shot of the episode just on the fifth glass on the table that's got a drink in it, but she's not there to drink it. It was a nice moment, and I think I liked it because it came relatively out of nowhere, because the episode wasn't about the fact that Carter's gone, and we've spent so much of the previous like 3 or 4 episodes focusing on that, rightfully so. But it was kind of nice just to have one little moment here at the end of like, we're back doing what we've done. This is the first normal person of interest since Carter's death, and it was just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of weird without her, but we have Shaw on the team now. Fusco's more involved. I think this is the first time Fusco's ever been to Reese's place, because when he walks in the first time with the blueprints and stuff, he's like, oh, nice place. And I'm like, oh yeah, you've not been here. Carter was coming here all the time, but you were kind of kept at arm's length. So it's interesting seeing the evolution of the relationships here, especially since Fusco's whole one-on-one with Reese, not last episode, but when he was tracking him down before, definitely developed their relationship a little bit. Yeah, Fusco doesn't have like big character bits this episode, but he has a lot of fun moments, particularly that I just mentioned, the ending, but also there's just a couple little moments when he's playing his part in the heist where he's the he shows up as the police officer to take in. He actually arrests both Shaw and Reese in this episode in different situations, not for real, of course, but like to the people watching, it's like, oh yes, the authorities are here and taking the bad person away. First was Reese, when he's there to like be the decoy in the heist so that everyone thinks they've already stopped a thief. And Fusco takes him to the car, and Reese is like, okay, now take me to the airport. And he's like, I should start charging fare. That was an amusing little line, but the one that got me more than that was later on when they're doing their whole final bit of the plan. And it's quite cathartic when, the bad guy's saying, this is not the last job. We're never going to let you stop working for us. That was one of the things that was being said before, is that, the bad guys will stop forcing her to do jobs for them and give her daughter back because this is the one last job. Of course, that's a lie. It's always a lie. But, he holds up the phone with a Skype call and says, here's your daughter. We're going to like hurt her a little bit just to prove that we can. But of course, Reese was on the airport because he was going to this location, I think in Prague. The group was from Prague. I assume they were keeping her in Prague. And he beats up the guys, and we never like cut to that location. We only see it through the Skype call, which is a really inspired little choice. It's handy because, admittedly, it would just be a plain room anyway, but you don't have to show a set like in totality. You can literally just have that corner of the room that we can see from the direction of the camera for the Skype call. But it's a good one-upmanship. But when he tries to shoot Kelly when she's walking out the building, Shaw has got her handgun hidden on her lap at the bar and pops him a couple of times in the knees or in the legs. And Fusco comes in and goes to arrest her. And what I liked about it, actually, another cop tries to arrest her, and Fusco kind of says, no, I've got her. Obviously, because he's not going to actually arrest her. But what I liked about it is that he goes to grab her arms to arrest her and escort her out. But I like that she just sort of sits there and finishes her drink before she moves. It's like she's not just, she's playing along, but she's just playing along a slight delay because she wants to finish her drink. And I got a chuckle out of that. I was almost expecting Fusco to complain that she's making it look unrealistic. But I got a little something out of that. Yeah, a lot of sexual tension this episode. I don't know what it is, but Shaw, for some reason, is has sexual tension with so many characters in this show. There was tons of it with what's your call her, Root, back when they were working together, and there was some in this episode between her and Kelly, because Kelly's introduction at the fancy gathering for all the rich people looking at the art and whatnot, where she pulls off the first heist, she's all nice to everyone, and then she turns out to be the cat burglar, which is not a surprise, but Shaw's the one that runs up and takes her mask off, and she already talked to her and they were making pleasantries. it felt very Catwoman, right? As a, I always compare things to comic books, but like it does feel very Catwoman in a lot of ways. At least the introduction does. Obviously, the whole story about the daughter is very different, but the introduction felt very much like that. But later on, when they're doing the heist together to get the book, and there's a lot of working together, there's a whole thing where because she's a gymnast, she's doing all these fancy flips and jumps on the rafters. Like there's these beams on the rafters that she can jump from. And it just keeps cutting back to Shaw looking like, oh, I'm so impressed. They give a reason for it, but notably to get around the motion sensor, Finch increased the heat in the room to match their body heat. But that's also a reason why both of them get in there and go, oh, it's hot in here, and they both take off like their tops, so they're in their tank tops. It's not a big thing, but it was just like, there's an odd like sexual tension going on here between these two. Shaw just seems to have that with people, and not just women either, but even at the start of the episode when she comes out in the dress for the gala or whatever it is, and Reese is having a hard time with his bow tie, and Finch is trying to help him. She walks in this dress, and he looks over, and he references a line that she had earlier about upgrading her arsenal, and he says that to her, and I'm like, whoa, Reese, calm down, that's a bit forward. Like it's like a super suggestive line, and she threatens to shoot him, which was satisfied, but it was funny. And then likewise, speaking of not so much tension, but another bit of like a, I don't know, it feels weird to call it a gay joke because it's not. There's nothing, it's not at the expense of gay people or anything like that. But there's a little joke when Finch and Reese are coming into the gala, and Finch has got the invitation, right? He's obviously done some hacking and whatever, and made sure they've got an invite. He's talking to the lady taking the tickets or whatever, and she like looks over at Reese up and down, and sort of when Reese walks away, she looks back at Finch and goes, "Oh, he's gorgeous." And Finch does a little eyebrow, like a little raise, and all I could think was, wait, I don't know if he's put down in the invite like this, and Reese just doesn't know about it, or this woman's just assuming that they're a gay couple. But that seemed to be the implication, is that she at least thinks they're there as a couple, and Finch just plays along. And it was such a moment that I thought they were going to pay it off with like her saying something to Reese later and him being confused. It was just a playful little joke, but it was funny. It was funny. It was like Finch had found himself a younger man, a big stud to take to the gala. I don't know, it was amusing. But that's kind of what I was saying at the start, though. It just all comes back to this being kind of a light, playful episode where the team get to form plans, they get to do surveillance, they get to even like convince the Interpol agent that the main woman Kelly's innocent, at least of the harsher crimes. Yeah, she was actually stealing stuff, but she was under duress. And he leaves with the key at the end to go. I mean, we get the classic kind of, they show up with a kid at the end. She's really happy and hugs her daughter, and it's a sweet moment. It's a good time. There's really nothing to complain about, and I would also say there's not even like a ton to necessarily analyze. I mean, the episode is mostly about just showing the team working well as a unit, and where each member has a purpose and they all do a good job. And Fusco's the one that gets the fingerprints by pulling over the security guy and making sure he dusts his ID badge or whatever it is, his license for prints. And they all play a role, and it does feel like a fairly happy group at the end who have accomplished something. They didn't just save the person whose number came up, they also got to save her daughter. So it was kind of like a reaffirmation of like, this is why we do this. We help people. And hell, we're even pretty good at it. And we pulled off a heist. So if anything, from years and years, decades at this point of watching TV, this tells me that this is a breather, not just because of all the stuff we've just had, but it's a breather because of what's going to be coming up soon. And that's not to say that I know what's coming up soon. I just know that we'll get a happy episode, maybe 2, maybe even 3 at a push. But we're getting a couple of lighter, happier, easier going episodes before the real shit hits the fan and the stakes go back up again. And that's what I mean by calling it a breather. I don't mean in any kind of negative way. It really is just to catch your breath. It's one of the art forms of the 22 episode TV show that's been completely lost with all these 8 and 10 episode streaming shows, some of which are very good. Don't get me wrong, I'm watching The Penguin right now. It's a very, very good show. But one of the things that we've lost by completely abandoning the longer season format is the idea that you can have breather episodes and you can play ups and downs, but one of the benefits that gives you is you get to endear yourself to the characters in a way over much more spans of time that you don't get in those shorter shows. And it really makes me appreciate it with something like this, to the point where that little moment at the end where they toast the Carter and it ends on that glass, you know, it did hit pretty hard. Like, not like a gut punch, but it did feel kind of sweet, and you feel the impact of it, and you feel something because, yeah, a member of the team does feel missing. And I don't think you build up that sort of camaraderie with your group of characters in a shorter TV show. You know, in a thing that only has 8 episodes a season. Maybe it only runs 3 seasons, so you've only got like 24 episodes total. And don't get me wrong, there's some shows that absolutely should never be longer than that. There's some shows that aren't designed for this long form TV count, episode count of TV. Like, absolutely there isn't. But this is exactly the sort of episode that you don't get with those shorter shows, because they can't afford to take the time to do one like this. And yeah, it was nice. I know I've missed jokes, I'm sure. Oh, another little joke I liked is when they break into Kelly's apartment and Shaw just kind of says, with like a sort of like a defensive tone, "This apartment looks a lot like mine." The idea being that, yeah, she's kind of efficient just like Shaw. Like, Shaw recognizes some of herself in Kelly. And, you know, it's these little moments of reflection. I suppose there is comparisons to be made. If nothing else, Shaw was doing a lot of things for other people before. I mean, so was Reese as well, to be fair, but Shaw more directly was working for Control, taking out people because of the machine, and kind of wasn't necessarily picking the targets or feeling good about what she was doing. So there's some parallels to make, for sure. But the show has made stronger parallels between their guest of the week and like one of the main characters. I think the parallels here are a little bit there, but this is more about feeling good about the team, being at their best, working together, working in a post-Carter world, and just reminding everyone how nice it is to be around this group of characters when, you know, all the stakes in the world aren't completely hitting us at one time. And on that front, it's a very enjoyable episode. So there you go. That's my thoughts on this person of interest. We'll see what comes next time, which should be a little bit more frequent now that we're sort of getting out of October. It's still October as I record this, and this one probably goes out before the end of October. But being out of October and also being done with classic Twilight Zone means that these should be more frequent again. Hopefully weekly. I'll try my best to make them be weekly. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. You can like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And of course, if you want to support the content and help keep all the reviews coming, I wouldn't be able to do it as often as I do across this channel and the movies channel where all the movie podcasts live, Male Fuzz Movies, without help on patreon.com/MaleFuzzTV or via YouTube membership if you would prefer. But Patreon also gets you all the bonuses for the movie channel, so have a look, see if you're interested, and help keep all the shows coming. But otherwise, that is me, so thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?